Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to take the board game Viticulture and have a random game prompt to tell us what mechanic to add into it. So for those of you who are new, in our weekly live streams, we'll bring a game to the table and talk about the things we like, which in a previous video, that was Viticulture. And so today, we are going to consult our wheel of mechanics and make sure that's showing. It will decide what random mechanic that we have to add in. Good morning, Michaela. Michaela is commenting on my glasses. They are, I know you don't use cute in the cute way. So anyway, let's jump over to our mechanics wheel. So we'll spin the wheel and we will spin it until it presents us a mechanic that isn't in Viticulture. And then we will set the timer. Open drafting. All right, so open drafting is our mechanic. And so we will write that here. Drafting. And we're adding that to Viticulture. Do a quick spell check. Looks like we got that correct enough. But why is it not showing on the screen? There we go. All right, so bam. So now what we'll do from here is on our phone, we'll set a 5-minute timer, and that will cap us to have to brainstorm something within that time. And so I have clicked the start timer. So open drafting is, my interpretation of it, is the standard variation of drafting is you'll be selecting cards, items, something from a supply and claiming as your own. And in open drafting, I believe that is that all of the information is public. And so for the, I would probably lean to the mamas and the papas. So in Viticulture, I probably can switch screens to just my full camera face, but I'm going to step off screen for a second. La, 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 la. We'll cut that out. But in Viticulture, everyone starts with a blue and red starting card, which are originally known as the mamas and the papas, but since the introduction of Viticulture World, there are mamas and papas that are blue and mamas and papas that are red, and so you'll get a random pairing traditionally, and when you put these blue and red cards together, you would get your starting resources and starting cards. And so on the mamas, you'll always get 2 workers and a random assortment of cards in the game. And on the papas, you'll always get your grande meeple and some money, but then you'll have the blue cards, you'll have a decision between starting with more, like you'll have a decision of choosing one of the bottom 2 resources. And so for open drafting, I think what I would do is, depending on the player count, I'm kind of thinking Lorenzo Il Magnifico in that for the drafting your families in the Renaissance expansion, I believe it's called. You'll be foregoing certain additional resources. You'll be bidding on the house powers that you want. And so that has a similar open drafting where you can outbid somebody by choosing to start with less resources. So I think I would add something like that into Viticulture for the sake of this brainstorm. And so maybe it's, you will deal out the different mamas and papas. How would you do that? Because everyone's getting a grande meeple, money, and cards. So maybe you would be bidding on So everyone's dealt out a blue card to start with, and then you would be doing an open draft of. So it's open draft, not auction. Maybe this isn't the right route to go. I was thinking auction for some reason. So maybe all of the drawing card spaces in the board. So there is one for each season, I believe, where you have these houses up at the top of the board. And so each time a draw, okay, there's only two. So there's this one and that one. So in those two sections, potentially anytime somebody goes there, there would be an open draft that maybe each section would have 3 face-up cards that is like the market to draft from. And anytime that you go there, everybody else gets to pick a card as well after you, where there's open information for that. And so anytime that somebody would gain a card in the game, whether it's from a location or from any of the other various ways of gaining cards, it would trigger an open draft. And so you would have the number of players playing in the game, that many cards face up shown for you to pick from, and you would pick clockwise in like drafting the cards there. I think that would be how I would try to add open drafting into the game. I'd like to preface it and say, but I think that would actively make Viticulture less of an enjoyable game because it would be more kind of finicky, and there'd be a lot of slow. So I'll finish that thought and recap where we got to. I think one of the things that appeals to me in Viticulture is that the actions in the game are fairly quick and snappy, and so you can kind of go back and forth taking these quick actions to do small benefits throughout the game. Adding that open drafting anytime a card is gained would create a lot longer of a playtime, and that would be something personally I would be less interested in. But for the sake of this brainstorming exercise, to recap where we got to, is our challenge was to add open drafting into Viticulture. And we came up with 2 ways of trying to implement it. We have our red and blue starting cards that at the beginning of the game, everyone would be dealt out their blue starting card, and then they would be, whoever has the least amount of money would then be drafting their red starting card. Is one way to add open drafting into the game, which to test that, I would ask Michaela or whoever else I was playing Viticulture with at the time of, hey, I have a variant that I'd like to try for, instead of assigning the mamas and the papas, or the red and the blue cards. I apologize for not continuing to use those as the red and blue cards, but instead of being dealt randomly the red and blue cards, we'll deal out the blue cards randomly to everyone, and then whoever has the least amount of money to start gets to then draft their red card as a setup. So that would be one way to test the open drafting concept that we came up with. The second open drafting concept that we came up with for the stream is that anytime a card is taken from either the wake up track or some of the draw cards here, like the spaces, anytime a player would draw a card, that would trigger a draft as well. And so for each deck, you would have a number of face-up cards based on the player count. So if we were playing with 2-player, there would be 2 face-up cards for you to see from each of the decks. And when a player hits a draw card action, they would then get to be the first to select from that market of which card they want, and then all other players in clockwise order would then get to draft one of the remaining cards. And so I would follow kind of the same principles of the next time we played Viticulture. I'd choose probably not to do it the same time that we're drafting the mamas and the papas, or the blue and yellow cards, or blue and red cards. I guess there's not too much impact between the two. I would probably test them both at the same time if I was really serious about trying to add an open drafting concept into the game. But I would state to all the players playing that traditionally all of the card decks will start with no information given. In this gameplay, I'd like to test out having a visible draft market for you to select from. And so, depending on the player count, if we were playing with 3 players, I would just draw and flip 3 cards face up, probably above the board, as available cards for people to select. And then I would just say, anytime you see that card symbol with a plus in it, so there's a few on the row here, that would trigger a open draft, and the player who triggers it gets to pick first. And at the end of each draft, you would then replenish the whatever colored deck that people selected from. And so that would be how I'd test it. So feel free to leave in the comments below, or comment down below, what your thoughts are either on these 2 ideas, or if you have another way to add in open drafting, I'd love to hear it. If you like this style of content, feel free to subscribe. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday following similar formats. So look forward to engaging with you further.